be reviewing Post-Incident Safety Management, which is Chapter 8 in your textbook. Like all other chapters, you should have read the chapter first, and you can follow along in your textbook as we give the presentation today, or as I give the presentation. So the learning objectives that we're going to discuss is that you should be able to list the safety and health considerations when terminating an incident. You should be able to describe the demobilization process. You should be able to compare the concepts of first in, last out with first in, first out. You should be able to explain the need and the process used for post-incident analysis. You should be able to list the components of a post-incident analysis. You should be able to describe the advantages of a critical incident stress management program. You should be able to list the key components in a critical incident stress management program. So what's important to know is that post-incident safety and health can be overlooked if not integrated into the total safety and health program. What that means is that if you don't have written SOPs and written SOGs, then it may be overlooked. So an SOP and an SOG are the same things. Some people call them standard operating procedures. Some people call them standard operating guides. And what they are is they are non-binding documents that can give you how a department should operate. And we say not binding, which means that, if you don't do something, most likely you're not going to get disciplined, because fire incidents, rescues, they're fluid. And you just can't say, hey, we're always going to do this, this, and this on each incident. But it's a standard operating guide or procedure. And it should be written so everyone knows how they should operate. Responders tend to let their guard down after the incident is over. We've cleared the incident, and what may have bugged you there, maybe you just kind of forget about it, but you could still be holding it deep inside you. Safety during this phase, which is after the incidents, should be emphasized and committed to be part of the program. So just because we are post-incident doesn't mean that we're just going to forget about the thing and move on. And then again, this whole chapter is regarding Firefighter Life Safety Initiative 13. That's what we're going to be talking about in this whole PowerPoint. So again, I've just said that is the focus of the chapter. What I'd like you to do now is pause this video, go back on page 17 of chapter 1, and review the 16 Firefighter Life Safety Initiatives. When you're completed doing that, and just go ahead and restart the video. So welcome back. So hopefully you reviewed those. Hopefully you especially looked at Initiative 13, because again, that is going to be the whole focus of this whole discussion. There's 3 stages in terminating an incident. There's demobilization, there's returning to the station, and there's post-incident analysis. So demobilization. This is done after we evaluate the on-scene resources and we compare them with what the current situation is. So what that means is that I have an incident. Let's say I've called a second alarm. I've got 8 engines, I've got 3 ladder trucks, a paramedic rescue, 2 chief officers. Do I need that now that the fire's out? We still got work to do. We still got to do overhaul, we got to do investigation, we've got to determine what we need for our report. This is demobilization. Now, this term in the California Fire Service is not usually used for your day-to-day situations. Where we use demobilization is usually on large wildland incidents, and that's where a true demobilization comes in. So go with the term, your book uses that, but understand that you're not going to hear the incident commander say, okay, we're going to demobilize. We just don't say that. Now on wildland incidents, we do that. On wildland incidents, that you're going to demobilize because you may have called 100 engines and 20 camp crews and 5 helicopters and 4 dozers. And you just can't keep all those resources if the fire's out. You have to evaluate what you need for the scene and based on the situation. There is the most common concept that I'm aware of in the fire service is what we call first in, last out. And that usually means is that first in company is going to be the last one to leave. And there's several reasons for that. They're the first ones in. They're going to be the incident commander till they pass command or command was taken by the battalion chief when they arrive. They're the ones that are required to do the investigation, and they're the ones that are required to do the work. When you're first in, you're going to do most of the firefighting, and then you're going to have to pick up your equipment, and the captain does the investigation, you'll be typically the last unit out. There's a new concept now that's called first in, first out. And I don't know if it's really new or not, but it's not common to me. So what that means is that the first in company is going to be one of the first resources to be released from the scene. Pros and cons to that. Again, if they're the first one in, that means somebody else has got to do the investigation, and that means somebody else has got to pick up their equipment, and that means that somebody else may or may not do the report. Doesn't work real well for me. What we can do is that, yes, they may be the first in, yes, they may have done the most work, but that doesn't mean we have to have them do an overhaul while we do the investigation. Now, that first in captain has to, but we may take the firefighters out and send them to rehab. Let them rehab out there. We may take those firefighters, and after they fought the fire, we may let them go out to rehab, and then they can hydrate and do the other thing, but we have other crews do overhaul. Regardless of how you do that, is you never want to release your RIC company. You want to always make sure somebody's assigned to RIC. Whether you change crews there, what that doesn't mean is that we're going to remove our RIC companies. Okay, we should always have a RIC company there. We need to keep RIC there as long as there's companies inside working. Because if you look at the case study at the beginning of the chapter, you could always have a collapse after the fire's put out. And actually that happens a lot. So you want to make sure that you always have a RIC company there. If you choose to do first in, first out, to make that work smoothly, you have to have standardized apparatus and equipment. You just can't say, hey, we're going to take this crew, take them off one engine, put them on another engine that they didn't check out the equipment that morning. They may not know where everything is, and they need to be able to, if you're going to put them on that apparatus, they need to be able to respond. So to make that work, you have to have standardized apparatus and equipment. Now, the Pasadena Fire Department where I worked, all the apparatus are standardized. 8 engines and the 2 trucks are standardized. The 2 trucks are standardized, the engines are standardized, the rescue ambulances are standardized. Now, that's easy if you're a department that has 8 stations. If you're a department that has 100 stations, that isn't easy. You can't say that we're going to have 100 identical equipment and apparatus. So you just can't set them up. You can't buy 100 apparatus that are all the same. They're changing constantly, so it may not work there. What this does do is it allows you to have fresh crews there. So you have a fresh crew that's in there working. Again, I would just put that first in company, set them aside, and let fresh crews come in. It's really important, though, that before we go back into service, that we check our equipment and stock after a call. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to stay out of service, go back to the station, wash all our hose after the fire. We're not going to do that. We're going to do our decontamination prior to the leaving the scene. We don't want to bring any kind of hazard back from the incident, whether it be soot from the incident or whether it be a hazmat. So you want to make sure that you leave it there. But we need to get crews back in service as soon as possible, unless the apparatus just can't go back into service. And sometimes that does happen. So let's first discuss how your textbook states a post-incident analysis. And again, these are really good. I've liked doing these after every incident. The components of the PIA, post-incident analysis, should focus on what resources you had there, were procedures followed, were they followed correctly, what equipment was used, and were we operationally effective? Did we put the fire out in a timely manner? Did we do a good job? Now there's informal discussions and there's formal discussions. The informal discussion can be done by the station captain, and they can be done with their crew. Okay, they can go back to the station, and again, for the informal, it doesn't mean that we stay out of service and we wait till we do this and then we put our equipment back on. We put our equipment back on the rig, and then we go back to the station, and then at an appropriate time, typically after the crews take showers, after they've had something to drink, then the captain will usually sit the crew down and they will discuss the incident. This is informal. It's for the crew's benefit. And it gives the captain an idea of what his crew thought. What we also have is what's called a formal PIA. Okay, and typically this is usually each department has a form. It's filled out by each company that was operating there. And it asks us all the questions we just talked above. What company were you on? What procedures did you do? What tactics did you do? What equipment did you use, and did it work good or bad? And you'll see that there's a direct relationship between the PIA, the SOPs, again, standard operating procedures, training, and operations. And you'll see these here. So we want to make sure that all of these are involved. We want to make sure that training's involved. They should have a presence there. They should make sure that the SOPs are followed, that operations has a portion of this because they're the ones that ran the call, and that everybody puts a piece into that PIA. Now, the PIA is usually done by someone who was not involved in the incident. So that would leave out a captain, that would leave out the incident commander, typically the battalion chief. They do not run the PIA. If the department has a training chief, typically a battalion chief, or a assistant chief, deputy chief, whatever you want to call the person, then he or she should lead this PIA, because you don't want the person that was on the incident running, because in their mind either everything went real well or maybe they thought everything went really bad and it didn't. So you want someone that's unbiased, that wasn't there, so they can look at all things. So typically we'll send out a form, give the crews an ample amount of time to fill out the form, request it back, it's put into one major document. One thing that we like to do in Pasadena is we like to always get a copy of the dispatch and the incident, because all incidents are recorded, and then we'll usually listen to it with all the crews so they can hear how things went. And again, this is crews that weren't even there. So you want to make sure that everybody learns from this. Again, that's easy to say from a department with 8 stations. We can divide them in half, get half and half there, and still have coverage. But you wouldn't expect a department that has 1 to 200 companies to have everybody there. But you should come up with a document that reviews it on major incidents. So again, we're going to listen to that tape. We're going to, if we have pictures, and we always take pictures, we have pictures and review them. And then we usually have the first in company officer come up and tell what they saw, what they did, and then anybody else that may have had an active part in this. And then the incident commander. Ask people, hey, did it go good? Did it go bad? And again, do we need to change anything? Do we need to change our SOPs? Do we need to change equipment? Do we need to change apparatus? It's really important that we find these things out now so that we can be a better department. We're next going to talk about critical incident stress management. This came into the fire service probably somewhere around 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And there's 2 ideas out there. Now, the first idea is what we're going to discuss is from your book. The second idea is from Every Firefighter Goes Home. Now, since you reviewed Every Firefighter Goes Home, we had you look at earlier, then you know that we're going to talk about item 13. But it all starts there. What is a critical incident stress management? What is it? The team, you have a team. The team characteristics are regionalization, a mental health professional as a team member, nonpartisan, receive appropriate training in this CISM, and that this is all confidential, relative anonymity are vital parts of it. So let's talk about each one of those. Regionalization. It shouldn't be just one department. It should be a whole area where everybody's involved, so that people that may come with you are part of this program. And I guess the best example I can give there is Pasadena. We had a team that we put together, but we put it together with Burbank and Glendale. And what we did is we created peer assessors, and we chose 4 from each shift, so 12 per department, and we sent those personnel to the same training. They went to training, they came back, and they were able to work as a team. And then mental health professional, you need to have somebody assigned as a team member. It needs to be done ahead of time. You can't say, oh, we just had this bad incident, everybody is just totally stressed out, let's find somebody. You need to have this person on a contract, and you need to have a procedure that everybody knows. And this person should be nonpartisan. And that's how your book refers to it. And what it means is that this shouldn't be the department's medical director or the department's doctor. This should be someone that isn't involved with the department at all, with the exception of being part of the team. And because you don't want someone that can see everybody every day. And that all of them should receive the appropriate training at their level. Now, why do we use the other fire departments? It's called peer diffusing. And what that does is, now that the person that's going to be talking to you is a firefighter, they know what you go through. I know that the complaint would be is, and I've heard it myself, and I probably even said it myself, that I don't want someone coming in here that doesn't know my job telling me that, hey, it's okay. Okay, you want someone that's been through what you've been through. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have somebody that's on your own department telling you that. They know you too well. You might hang out together off duty. You want someone that's a firefighter from another department so that, you know what, even if you feel like crying to that person, they're not going to tell anybody. And that's part of the peer diffusing. They know that they don't go back and say, oh yeah, so-and-so was crying. Okay, they keep it personal, and you can tell them what's bugging you, and they're going to keep it to the two of you. So typically when we have an incident, we'll request one from each department. They'll send over 2 people that have been trained, and they'll be able to sit down with those firefighters and be able to go over the incident and hopefully solve it. And we're going to look at it a little bit deeper, a little bit. Then there's formal debriefing, where we actually have everybody. This is a formal one, and we have the healthcare professional usually run it. Sometimes this is kind of out of order, but you could have on-site diffusing. I don't like this for the most part. What this doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that you're going to sit on the tailboard, you're going to discuss this with your peer diffuser or someone else and call it good and leave. What it means is that you're going to ask, the captain's going to ask their crew, hey, does anybody have a problem? And if somebody has a problem, then we're going to start the process. Now, we have at times on really bad incidents, find a building that's near us, maybe a school or something like that, where you can get a nice quiet spot where you can have this done. But again, you don't want to have this person diffuse, then walk right back out and see what caused this problem. Okay, and then again, we talked about demobilization. One person that should not be any of this process is the supervisor, because the supervisor first is involved in the situation, and they have to work with these personnel every day. So they should not be involved. They're the ones that have to ask, but they shouldn't be one of the diffusers. And what's important is the supervisor has to ask. When we first got into this, I had an incident where this huge 10,000-pound fan that the movie industry used fell on a guy and it crushed his head. And I thought, okay, we've been on enough bad stuff. It didn't bother me. And we move on. And the incident commander says, hey, do you need to have critical incident stress debriefing? We called it at the time. And I said, no, we don't. But then I went back and asked my crew, and 2 of my crew said, yes, we do. And the reason is that it didn't bother me, but both of these personnel who were seasoned professionals who had been on so many trauma calls, but this male had 2 young sons at home, and so did both of these firefighters. They both had 2 sons at home, and in their mind they're going, wow, what if I was killed today and I didn't go home? And it put them in a different perspective. So again, you got to ask all the personnel. And this has to be a necessary component of your safety and health programs. So most departments have a safety and health program, and it should be in there. How do you call for help? There should be no questions to anybody. Now, there's a new process. As I'm making this recording in April of 2013, there's a new process, and this is the flow chart. You have after-action review, curbside manner, and stress first aid for firefighters. Remember that this method was designed after the text was published and should not be considered for exams in this course. But this is where the fire service is going, and I'm fairly confident that in your career, if you don't work for the fire service yet, that you will see this, and if you work for the fire service, this is what the change is going to be. So the first thing is you look at this flow chart. Did we have a traumatic event? If the answer is yes or no. If the answer is yes, when we move on. If it's no, then the protocol terminates. If it's yes, then we get a protocol request. Do you need to have counseling? If the answer is yes, then we're going to do what we call a timeout hot wash. I'll discuss all of these a little bit further in the next slide. Did that resolve the issue? No, we're going to move on. Yes, okay, the protocol terminates. If it didn't resolve it, we're going to do what we call a TSQ screening, trauma screening questionnaire, and I'll talk about that again. And then it goes down, was there 6 positives or more? If it's yes, we're going to keep going. If it's no, okay, we may need other assistance, but maybe we're going to get some referral back and make sure that down the road that they don't need help. If we had 6 positives or more, then we're going to get a complete assessment by a healthcare professional, and then they will decide if you need treatment or not. So the after-action review. What was our mission? Why were we called there? Was it a structure fire? Was it a traffic collision? What went well? you want to start there. Let's make this a positive. Hopefully, and there should always be something that went well. And then what could have gone better? Not, you don't say, hey, oh, what did we screw up on? No, what could have gone better? Because it always can get better. And that's how we improve, is by seeing these scenes, going on these scenes, and then improving on them in the future. And then to do that, what might have we done differently? And there's always something usually differently. And then who else needs to know? Now this is an important question. And we're not going to share, someone's really messed up with it, but is this a department-wide problem that we did that's with our equipment or our training? But then we need to make sure that everybody knows. So that Curbside Manner, again, this is fairly new, and they use the 5 C's. Cover is the first one. If we have to do this, we need to cover the person. And what I mean by that is we need to get them off of that apparatus till we can solve the problem. And that may be one of several ways. Maybe the incident commander decides to take the apparatus out of service, maybe decides to replace the firefighter. When I say replace, I don't mean to send the firefighter home. We're not going to do that at this point, but let's get them off that rig if we need to and see where we need to go. Let's calm the situation down. We go on emergencies. They're emergencies, and a lot of times things aren't calm. Let's get them to a place where we can all be calm, and we discussed that a little bit earlier. Let's connect with the person. Let's let them know that, hey, we're all here to help them, whatever they need. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to seek further assistance. And let the person know, hey, you know what, you're a competent individual. Just because we have this incident, just because this incident's bothering you, does not make you incompetent. And I'll tell you right now that it may or may not be that you have many incidents in your career that will bother you, but I guarantee you that you will. I've had 2 in my career. Doesn't mean I wasn't competent, at least I don't think so. But for some reason, the two incidents just really bothered me, and I had nightmares. This is prior to having any kind of critical incident stress or debriefing. Again, back in the day, I know it's a term we all use, but back in the day, truly, you were just expected to come back to the station and just handle it. That's what we do, is handle it. But what we found is that a lot of problems occur of that, both in your personal life and your professional life. So the goal is to save people and let them have a 30-year plus career. And then give the person confidence. Let them know, hey, we're behind you. We're here to help you out any way we can. So the stress first aid for firefighters. This is the formal portion that they're going to have. And again, remember, this is all stuff that's coming into your career. It's going to happen as soon as it's determined to be needed. And again, you can always speed these things up or slow these things down as much as you need. You're going to do that trauma screening questionnaire, TSQ, typically 3 to 4 weeks after the event. It has 10 simple questions. If the firefighter answers more than 6 positive questions, then that's going to result in a complete screening. And then this will result in a complete assessment. This will result in a complete assessment by the department's or jurisdiction's behavioral health assistant professional. And again, this is someone that they have under contract, hopefully, and it's someone that we can go contact, and there's a whole plan in writing what we'll do. And then if that determines that the person needs further help, then we'll send them to a specialty clinician. So a summary: don't overlook safety and health after the incident. After that incident, if it's been a structure fire, it's a structure fire that everyone did good, then people are going to be, yeah, okay, we did good, that was a good incident. This is one of the hazards at the scene. Just don't leave without doing it. Think about the personal stress management. Remember the post-incident analysis, PIA, critical incident stress management, and that's changing now. All personnel must be aware that you have a program. You just can't have management know there's a program if nobody else does. Everybody should have knowledge of the program. And I'm not sure if I said it earlier in the tape or not, but after we sent our peer diffusers to the training, they came back and introduced the training to all the departments. And there's a policy on it so that everybody knows. And remember that many essential safety and health program functions occur after the incident itself. It may not show itself at the scene.